Hey folks, my name's Janine and I'm an upholsterer, and today I'm going to show you how we pattern a boat cover. And I'm going to go inside before I get a sunburn. This is the boat we're working on today. This one already has all of the fasteners in it. If you're working on something that doesn't have any snaps or twist locks or turn and locks, you will need to add those first in this boat patterning process of ours. The next thing we do is the support system. Normally a cover will have some poles in it. In this case, it will have two poles holding the cover up so it doesn't sag down in the middle. Any way that you want to support these is fine. As you can see, we have a webbing strap with a bunch of snaps in it, and we attach it to the front center and the rear center of the boat, and then the poles just kind of push up on that webbing, and they'll stay in place the whole time we pattern. This tape will ensure that the pole doesn't tip to the right or left while we're patterning. These cardboard tubes are temporary, of course. We will be using an aluminum adjustable pole that will fit into a vent on the top of the cover. This is what we use to pattern pretty much all of our boat canvas, from full covers to biminis to full enclosures, you name it. It's basically just a vapor barrier for construction purposes. 10 feet wide by 100 feet long, and it's really just a somewhat durable, clearish plastic. So our next step is to measure the boat and cut off what length we'll need to pattern that. This plastic is 10 feet wide, but it's on a 5-foot roll, which means it has a convenient fold right down the center. And we'll put that to use in a minute. We start by using the fold as the center mark, front to back, and then we put snap sockets over the plastic to hold it down to the boat. This is what I mean right here. The snaps that will be installed on this cover are made up of two pieces. There's a top, which is the cap, and the bottom half, which is the socket. So we just use the sockets on their own to hold the plastic down. Keeping the center fold of the plastic centered on the boat means it runs right down this ridge line to the back, using our snap sockets to hold it in place. With the front and the back secured tightly, we can now work our way down the sides. If you are using clear plastic like this to pattern also, I highly recommend marking out on the outside of this plastic. That way you don't get confused when you start trying to cut things apart and trace them later. There are some Twistlock fasteners on this boat, so to secure the plastic to them we just put a small slice in it and then pop it over and twist it. Some areas will need relief cuts in the plastic. This particular boat has a bit of a transition area here where the fasteners are on top and then they switch to sort of on the side and the bottom, so it'll have a curved edge on the cover. As you work your way around the boat putting these snap sockets on, you will start to notice things that need to be added into your cover pattern, like cutouts for this handle, for example. The more thorough you are with the marking and the cutting and the fitment of your pattern, the better your end result cover will be. I guarantee it. These floppy little corners will get cut and sewn in a little seam. This big wrinkle here will turn into a seam. Pro tip, put the snap sockets in your pockets. We like to take our time and work around the boat, trying to ensure that we can pull out as many wrinkles as possible just by pulling on the plastic and putting a snap socket on. This pattern is looking pretty good, so we can start marking things in Sharpie now. Like this little corner seam. Those little lines underneath the snap sockets are where the cover will end. Any areas that are high wear, like this cleat, can be marked so we can sew a piece of reinforcing on the cover to protect it. Similar to upholstery, it's very important to mark all things on your pattern, because when this plastic comes off of the boat and onto the table to be cut and then traced onto your fabric, some things that might seem really obvious right now on the boat are very not obvious when you try and trace things and sew them together later. So any little edges or curves or little notes that you want to write, like adding a ½ inch here and there, all of those things are very important on your pattern. These clamps work great for holding an area like this together while we mark it. You could also use a stapler. These lines that Tim is marking is where the seam will be. So this will be the stitch line. In my opinion, it's very important to have line-up marks on any seam, any seam over a couple of inches. So all of these lines, top and bottom, are the same length, and those will be translated into my sewing line-up marks on the pattern later. This is one of the many reasons we like to use this clear plastic for patterning. These supports will also need to be marked so I know where to sew the vents on, or in some cases a snap patch. This is one of Tim's top secret patterning tricks. I call it the disappearing seam. In this plastic, it will be patterned like any other seam that would be sewn in the future. But I will try to explain how we can make it disappear. Welcome to Arts and Crafts with J9. If you took the plastic pattern off the boat and laid it on the table right now, it would look similar to this. This is not in proportion because it would be a little bit more narrow at the front and wider at the back. That is the front of the boat. So these are those two seams that we just patterned with the clamps that are from the front windshield down to the side of the boat. And this center area is the center seam that this cover will have. So the two supports are in this line. And this is the disappearing seam. And the reason it can disappear is because it's straight from end to end within this piece. So when we cut the plastic apart, we can take these two halves of the plastic and put them together like that and tape them. And that makes that seam disappear. You cannot do that with a curved seam because they won't go together. They need to be, sewn. But this one will disappear. Depending on how you were patterning your cover, if you were putting seams across, you would find different ways to do things like this. If you had a seam going across, maybe this would work out, in a similar fashion and not be an extra seam in your cover. But for us, this boat will have this shape and this seam down the center, which means we can basically delete this seam, thus make it disappearing. Every fastener will get marked on this pattern. That way I can ensure I sew reinforcing material in all the right spots. This is what our plastic pattern looks like right before we take it off the boat. We like to take a good look around to make sure we didn't miss any important things. These snap sockets pop off easy with a flathead screwdriver. Jane, I'm the helper. Depending on your workspace, you may want to lay this pattern out on a driveway or a floor to cut it down into more manageable pieces. This fold is the center seam of the cover from front to back, so we'll put line-up marks on it before cutting these two pieces apart. A very important step here is to mark the top or the outside of each piece of the pattern before you cut them apart. We also put arrows on every piece, all pointing in the same direction, usually forward. We like to use a straight edge to get a nice clean line for the edge of the cover. This is that disappearing seam I was talking about earlier. We'll use these line-up marks to tape the two pieces together. So those two lines are the sew lines, and when you overlap the two lines, you take the excess material out, as if it were sewn. By taping these two pieces together now, it means we can pattern this as one big piece without that extra seam. It's almost like it didn't even happen. This is how we turn that sew line into lineup marks. If you remember that part during patterning, all of those top and bottom lines are the same length as each other. So if we put a lineup mark on the beginning or the end of those, it'll line up to the other side. You can see here that Tim abandoned my arrow idea, but that's okay. I will remember where these parts go. I like to put all the cleaned up pattern pieces in a safe place, so I keep them separate from the garbage pieces. With the first half of the pattern set aside, we can now do all of those same things to the second half. Now all of these pieces are cleaned up and ready to be patterned onto the new boat cover material. And you can check that out in an upcoming episode of J9 the Upholster. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.